Welcome to the Fearlessly Authentic Sash and Soul podcast, the show that goes beyond the stage, prioritizing a healthy mindset, overall well-being, and triumphs in the pageant journey. In each episode, we dive into the transformative power of embracing authenticity fearlessly.
From mindset mastery and self-care strategies to success stories that inspire, this podcast is your go-to guide for navigating the pageant world with confidence and resilience. Join us as we embark on a journey of self-discovery, empowerment, and celebrate the stories of those who fearlessly embraced their authenticity on the path to pageant success. I'm Lila Sherry.
And I'm Rayanna Johnson. Welcome to Sash and Soul. Welcome back to Sash and Soul, guys.
Hi, we have a really awesome guest today, and I want to jump right in because I'm really excited. Annie Jorgensen is here with us today. She's a former Miss Georgia with the Miss America organization and Miss High School America. She graduated from the University of Georgia after completing her year of service as Miss Georgia in 2018 and moved to New York City. Oh my gosh. She is currently a business owner, a full-time freelancer working in influencer marketing, strategy, and content creation. I love her. I love watching all that she does. So this is really exciting for me. And I'm going to let her talk a lot more about what she does because you know best. But so excited that you're here today. Thanks for making the time.
Of course. I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
I'm super excited because Annie is like a little sister to me. Her family had really taken me in. Annie was Miss Wisconsin's Outstanding Teen 2011. So when Laura Kepler won Miss America, which I really want to hear like your perspective on what that was like in the audience watching her. But she got a second big sister that year in me. And like her mom read at my wedding, and I've been to their house so many times for holidays and things, and they're just awesome people. And we were just chatting actually because Annie's a little bit of a go-to person for me when I don't know what to wear, and I'm going to Vegas this weekend. So I just appreciate you so much. I love you.
I love you too. I feel like that you just made me sound like a jack of all trades, and I will take every single thing of it. So yeah, I'm so happy. I feel like we're just girl talking today. So I'm so happy to be here. The best way to start my morning. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, I want to start off with, how do you two know each other? I know you just touched on it, but talk a little bit about the pageant journey that brought us here today, like how all of us are here today. You can start, Ray, or you, Annie, whoever wants to go first.
Nope, me first. I was like, me first. So yeah, I mean, Ray just really touched on like the highlights of how we came into each other's lives. And that was in 2011, 2012, during that year of Miss Wisconsin, for me being Miss Wisconsin's Outstanding Teen, for Ray, her first go at being Miss Wisconsin. And I mean, it was just the craziest thing. I remember going to Laura Kepler's homecoming, and I think that's where we met for the first time, Rihanna. And like, for whatever reason, we just clicked and we were immediately like soul sisters. I don't have a big sister, and I do feel like you're the big sister I've never had. And we've only gotten closer from that day. Even as we were outgoing queens going to our final photo shoot, and we pulled out the dresses and we're like, wait, hold on, these match. Like, how did this happen? How are we matching in this way? And from that point on, we were just incredibly so supportive of each other. So your pursuit and Miss Wisconsin and competing at Miss America yourself. Fast forward a few years after that, you were at Miss America cheering me on in 2018. And like you said, we spent holidays together. You basically like lived at my parents' house for a while. So I really do feel like you are family. So it's fun to see this come full circle. Now we're both business owners, figuring it out in this crazy world. But, you know, every step of the way, we're like, what are you doing? Do you know what you're doing? Do you know what you're doing? Like, what's going on? And so, like, I mean, we both figured out, but we are here together as we work through every step of every phase of our life.
Oh my gosh, I'm emotional this week. So I'm already like tearing up over here listening to you talk about like, yes, like there was like the full circle moment of me watching you at Miss America in Atlantic City. And like, you have been such a hype girl for me. Like when we talk about the sisterhood, like
Yeah.
she is definitely epitome of like what that means to me. Because I remember when I competed for my last local of Miss Madison that led me to Miss Wisconsin in 2014, I walked out in swimsuit and came back and I checked my phone, and Annie was like, oh my God, you're a goddess. And I was like, oh, I love you so much. Thank you.
That's how it should be though,
Yeah, it's
right?
little things like
Yeah.
that that are just amazing. So, and now she's doing awesome things and I'm living vicariously through her in New York City. You're looking for your very own apartment. I need to hear where you're at with that. And also, like, I just keep telling her that she's like, what's her face from Sex in the City? Like,
Carrie?
yeah.
Oh
I like
my.
to think I'm the perfect combination of Carrie and Samantha right now because I'm in my single flirty girl era and, you know, I freelance, I write like Carrie does. I do love a good pair of shoes and I just finished rewatching Sex in the City, so it's very relevant.
Yes.
I love it. Yeah.
Okay, let's touch on a little bit, Annie, of your pageant journey. I mean, take this where you want, but you've been through a lot of different systems and successfully have been through a lot of different systems. What did that look like for you, I guess, from beginning to end?
Yeah, and I wish I had like a really great way to start the story of saying like this is what I went out to do and I worked towards it my whole life. And that's kind of true, but also not true at all. So I the reason I started competing in pageantry is because I believed that it was my calling and my purpose in life to be on the Disney Channel. And one day I got a postcard in the mail inviting me to an open call to a National American Miss pageant. And I was 12 years old at the time. And I took it to my mom and I was like, this is it. This is my big break. Like, we have to do this. And my mom was like, absolutely not. Like, you're insane. And I like really pushed. I asked a million times, and she was like, if you really want to do it this time next year, then we can consider it. I was like in gymnastics and all these after school activities. And she was like, we can't add one more thing to your plate. Like, no way. And growing up in Wisconsin, you guys probably know, like, nobody really does this, especially where I grew up. I didn't know a single person who had competed in pageantry. The only thing we knew was toddlers and tiaras. And my mom was like, hey, I don't think that's our vibe. But anyway, a year came and went. And the next year I was like, all right, mom, like it's time. We're doing this. And she jumped right in. We both had no idea what I was doing. I refused to wear makeup or wear like stage make. I refused to wear stage makeup and curl my hair for my first like final pageant. So I have straight hair with my hair in like a little back poof as you did when you were in middle school, with just like my everyday school makeup on. I ended up somehow weaseling my way into the top 15, top 10 of that year National American Miss. And through that whole weekend, I really just came into my own. I used to be really shy. I was never the person to do things on my own. And this was the first thing I did without a friend by my side. And throughout the 3-day weekend, I truly just blossomed into somebody that I had never met before, but a better version of me. And my mom saw it too. And so from that moment on, she was my partner in crime, really pursuing everything. So I started my first 2 years competing in National American Miss. The former title holder of Miss Wisconsin's Outstanding Teen's mom told my mom that I had to try Wisconsin Outstanding Teen because I was a dancer. And so I was like, all right, like, sure, I'll give it a shot. Competed for Miss Milwaukee's Outstanding Teen, made my way to Miss Wisconsin's Outstanding Teen. That's a lot of times to say Outstanding Teen. Oh my God, sorry. And then tragedy struck the month before Miss Wisconsin's teen because I was diagnosed with mono. I was like practicing my talent. And this was when talents were like around 2 minutes or 2 minutes plus. And I physically could not get through it. Like I would actually pass out by the end of my routine. And I was like, what's happening? Well, I had mono. Somehow got to still be at Miss Wisconsin. My mom did my hair and makeup as I was sleeping, competed still, and somehow again, like I don't know how it happened. I truly believe it was God's plan or fate or whatever you believe in, but I ended up winning Miss Wisconsin's Outstanding Teen. And so during that year, that was 2011 when Laura Kepler went on to become Miss America. That's when I met Ray for the first time. And that's really when I felt that pageant bug really bite me. And I think it was seeing Laura Kepler win Miss America that really like kind of shocked me. And because growing up in Wisconsin, not knowing pageant people, I always thought you had to be famous to become Miss America or like be somebody before you became Miss America. And obviously, not that Laura was nobody before. She was amazing. And I just looked up to her so much. And I saw the work that she put in for the 6 months leading into that Miss America competition. I knew what her goals were. And seeing her throughout the week, like really just nail every single phase of the competition and then walk away as the title holder, it opened my eyes to say, you don't have to have, some great legacy in pageant land in order to do this. Like you can do this if you work hard and you put your mind to it. And I walked away from that Vegas trip being like, okay, I'm going to compete at Miss America one day. And so fast forward a few years, I was Miss High School America in 2013, traveled all throughout the country speaking on an anti-bullying platform, graduated from high school, moved to college. I went to the University of Georgia, took my freshman year off of pageantry. Sophomore year, I was like, all right, I gotta do this. I miss it. I gotta be back. And then I spent the next 3 years competing for Miss Georgia in the America system. And on my third year, I ended up winning in 2018, right after I graduated from college. And I had a platform called I Got This, which is where I helped young girls really build and establish their self-confidence. I partnered with the Girl Scouts of America to develop a confidence patch called the I Got This patch. So it was just a really great experience. I learned so much during specifically my year as Miss Georgia, but also my years in pageantry. It was almost a decade or just over a decade by the time I finished my year of service. And I wouldn't trade that experience for the world. Pageantry is a weird place. It's a weird industry,
Yeah.
but you really do become a much better version of yourself. And I think this is a testament to say, like, the relationships that you build are so unmatched. So I would do it again in a heartbeat.
I love this is why I never take too much time in the beginning to do intros because it is always so much better when you guys are talking. So thank you. Okay, you mentioned a few different systems. And before we get into kind of the more deeper stuff, what were the differences that you saw between the systems? I mean, our goal is to really cater to as many people as possible competing in as many different systems as possible. And I think you're a great example of somebody that has experienced a lot of different systems. Can you touch a little bit on that, and kind of how the progression went or the differences that you saw, things like that?
Totally. And I totally agree because I think different types of people can be successful in different systems, but you might not translate to all of them. If we're being honest, we can all agree. But National American Miss is a really amazing system to start out in. It's very intro level. They pretty much handhold you to create your paperwork and let you know what each phase is. You have to go through an initial interview, quote unquote, process to be accepted, quote unquote, process into the pageant. So like that, like I was saying, it's just the best first step into the pageant industry. I had the best time. It's really community building. They make sure the girls are friends by the end of the week. And from what I remember, it's a very low, or at least a lower financial commitment. So great way to start. And then Miss America system. Obviously, the system has changed so much in the time that I competed in teen to Miss to now. But when I was a teen, it was the perfect combination of everything that I was involved in. I was a dancer, so I got to dance, and it was my first chance to ever dance in a solo routine. So I was so excited to do that. I did a lot of community service work already, so I felt like it was rewarding the work that I was doing. I was very focused on school and I worked really hard in school, so it rewarded that. And I knew that I wanted to go out of state for college at a very early age. So this was my way of working to build scholarship money as early as possible. So I loved that. It's definitely more intense. Like that's way more labor intensive with the platform, what they now call social impact initiative. Like that is a lot of effort and it truly is a job. At the teen level, you can, it comes in waves. If you have a lot of things going on in life and school, you can kind of take a step back. Obviously, Miss is a little bit different. But I noticed that I was working a lot harder as Wisconsin's teen than I had, for National American Miss. And then I finished my year of service after, it must have been my junior year of high school as Wisconsin's teen. And then High School America was what I like to think of was my how I kept up my skills. It was my practice pageant, which in hindsight is a very funny way to go into that because I ended up wanting it more than I even wanted Miss Wisconsin's outstanding team at the time. And it's a little bit more fun, a little bit more lighthearted, like no political, no current event questions in interview, a lot of like activities during pageant week rather than rehearsals. And I have found that within High School America, that's great for girls who are figuring out whether or not they might in the future do USA or might in the future do America. It's a really great mold of both. And I liked it too because it's a little bit more fashion forward. They have, I think they call it fashion runway now, but they used to call it fun fashion, where you could literally wear whatever you want. And like that's a phase of competition, which is so fun for the Carrie Bradshaw and me. So I loved that. And then obviously Miss America, the Miss version is even more intense than the teen. It is not something you want to go into lightly, especially if you want to take it seriously and pursue Miss America. But that's where I saw the most personal growth for me. And it I wouldn't be able to own my business and do what I'm doing now without my experience competing and reigning as a Miss title holder in the Miss America organization.
Yeah, that's exactly kind of what I want to head into too, is what what do you wish you would have known? Let's start there. What do you wish you would have known through all of how many years was it from beginning to end actually?
It was 10 exactly. I competed for the first time at 13. And then when I gave up Miss Georgia, I was 23.
Okay, so 10 years, that's awesome. From beginning to end, what is something that you wish you could have known? Let's start with that.
I have always been a perfectionist. And I think now being on the other side where I'm judging competitions, I'm seeing it from the coach's perspective, like I have a different, fresh set of eyes. And I wish I could go back and tell, especially my Miss America preparing self, maybe like teen, this is what we had to work through as a teen. But as a young woman competing for Miss Georgia, competing for Miss America, I wanted to I wish I could go back and shake myself and just say, relax and be honest. I feel like in interview, I was trying to be perfect and trying to say maybe not what I thought they wanted to hear, but the best version of what I could say rather than just being honest and telling my thoughts. Like, especially within current event questions, like sometimes you just have to say, that's the craziest thing I've ever heard. Like, if somebody were to ask me right now, and this is not interview advice, but if they were saying, like Trump and Biden are running into this 2024 election, I'd be like, are you kidding me? Like, these are our best options. Genuinely, I think I would say that if I could go back in the body that I'm in now and being in an interview. Maybe not the best advice, but you know what I mean? Just like actually being honest in how you feel, because that's what the judges resonate with. And more likely than not, they're going to have a strong reaction of either agreeing with you or disagreeing with you. And as long as you say it in a way that is respectful and it's honest and it's coming from a place of that's your belief, not the belief of society in general, I think that's something that's really admirable and shows another level of confidence and maturity. A long-winded way to say, I wish I would be less of a perfectionist.
No, it's true. It's so crazy how much we hear it over and over. I'm getting to that point, like finishing up Miss Wisconsin and realizing how many things could have been more fun had I just let loose. And I love when you said like being honest. I think that that applies in a lot of different areas. And Ray, jump in. I feel like you're
yeah, my wheels are turning because
yeah.
I'm thinking, I think everyone reaches that point of realizing like, oh, I'm good. Like I can just have fun and let loose now. It's almost like we sometimes have to, and you don't have to, but a lot of us go through that trudge of perfectionism and trying to figure it out. And we're getting feedback from multiple different sources. And then you finally reach a point where you're like, okay, cool. Like I think I got all the skills now. I'm just going to let loose. And if you can learn that earlier, that's so much more fun. But, I think at some point we all tend to get there.
Yeah. What I tell my clients now is going from what I find, especially within teenagers, is girls in interview, they're so in their heads and they're thinking of like, okay, what's the perfect answer? Like, how do I respond to that? What do I want to say? How do I say it? Whereas when you're in the interview room, when you're in pageant week, move those thoughts into your body, be present, like you've done the work to get to the position that you are now, just live it and react. That's how I would say successful interviews go. I feel like every girl that walks out of interview ends up winning is like, I just, I don't even remember. I just flowed. I just said it. It felt right. And that's exactly what it means to be in your body and be reacting to interview questions rather than thinking about everything during the week.
That's exactly what I tell my clients. Don't answer the question, react to the question. Yeah. It's just so much more powerful that way. And that's what we do in conversations. That's literally what we're doing right now, having this conversation with you, is we're just reacting off of each other and kind of getting inspired by what we're hearing each other say. And it's so fun. It's fun for us to communicate that way. And it's so much more fun for the judges too. It's just such a comfortable experience. It shows them that they can trust you as a title holder to go out into the community and truly just speak with anybody because you've got the listening skills and you're personable because you are genuinely reacting, not trying to be poised and perfect. And the thing that I hear clients say a lot too is, I don't want to offend anyone. But I love the way that you said that, like, be real, be honest. And as long as you're doing it in a respectful way, it's going to be more powerful than if you were trying to cater to every single person's opinion when you don't know their opinions in the first place.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you remember if there was a moment or like a switch that flipped or an experience that you had that you realized like, oh, maybe I could let loose a little bit, or maybe this would be more fun if I just relaxed a little?
I'm smiling because absolutely. So, like I said before, I competed for Miss Georgia 3 years in a row. So, the first year was definitely a learning year for me. I was from the North competing in the South for the first time, like definitely intense. And I was like, I'll just go and I'll see what's up. Like, I'm going to do my best, but not expecting anything. And I ended up making top 10. So, I was very proud of that. Gave me a lot of motivation to come back the next year. Well, the next year I came back and I had dieted like crazy for swimsuit. Like I loved the way my body looked. I felt really good. My platform I had developed my platform to be a lot stronger. I had done a lot more work with it. My interview I felt was like really strong. I did in my head everything that I could have done to be better prepared. And I went into that year of Miss Georgia being like, this thing is mine. I got this. I am the right person. Like I'm so ready. And then I ended up making top 15, which I'm going to be honest with you guys, but recognize, I'll preface and say, I'm very grateful to have placed top 15. I'm very proud of that. I was devastated because the year before I made top 10. And so this was a step back. And in my head, a big step back because in my head, I had already won because that's a mentality you have to have going into the pageant. So I left the pageant absolutely devastated. Like when I didn't make top 10, I was like so dramatic. Oh my God, I'm actually embarrassed to tell this story. I was like crying in the backstage. My mom came around to hug me. I was like, I can't be that girl, but I was. Well, anyway, I left the pageant and I was like, maybe this isn't for me. Like maybe I should think about going back to Wisconsin to compete. I don't know. Then I slept on it and I was like, I don't think I was acting genuinely like Annie, like me. I was acting what I thought Miss Georgia should be. And so that, of course, I didn't win because it wasn't me. How was I supposed to hold that up for an entire year? And so I was able to release that feeling. And then for the next whole calendar year before going back to compete for the third time, everything I did, I would check in with myself and say, like, okay, does this feel right? Would I do this outside of pageant land? Or like, would I wear this gown? Would I do X, Y, and Z? Like, does it actually reflect how I feel, how I think, who I am? And I was able to answer yes every single time I asked myself that question going into my third year. So when I went into Miss Georgia week, I was as relaxed as I've ever been. I had fun. I was, staying up late with the girls laughing as you're not supposed to do on pageant week, but I was just living in the moment. And I think the judges saw how much fun I was having on stage, and that just reflected in my confidence level. And so by the time I walked away winning the title of Miss Georgia, I was like, that was the way it was supposed to be. So of course, like having that in my head, that failure of doing worse the second year really catapulted me into the future. I've seen on TikTok a lot this she must be a therapist or something, but she talks about that failure is like a bow and arrow. So like failure pulls you back to then catapult you forward. And that was the epitome of those 2 years of my life.
You mentioned that your second time around, you came back and you were like, I'm going to win this. Like it's, I've done all the work. I'm ready for this. And you said that's the mentality you have to go into a pageant with. Did you have that same mentality your third year when you came back and won, or how was it different?
I would say yes, but it was different. So I think my first year was more of like, I have to do this. Like, this is mine. I like reaching for it. Like, it felt like it was mine within reach. Whereas my third year going back, I felt like I was letting Miss Georgia come to me. I was like, this is who I am. If she wants to meet me where I am, then it's good. And if not, then it's not for me. And that's okay. I'll go on with whatever else is meant for me in my life. But if I know, if I'm true to myself, if it's right for me, it will come. And it did.
Love that.
Do you have a favorite memory as Miss Georgia, or any time you've made an appearance through any of your time being a title holder? Do you have a favorite memory?
Oh my gosh, that's so hard to choose. I think I'll have to every different title I've had, I have like very vivid memories, but let's focus on Miss Georgia, I guess. Two different avenues. The friendships that I made, I'll like talk about in a second, but as my role as Miss Georgia, like I said, I developed a program for the Girl Scouts of America. And so it was my biggest honor. I was able to work with this group of girls for 5 weeks straight who were, I think they were in fifth grade. It's been a minute since I talked about this, but I think they were fifth graders. So like, what would that be? Like 8 to 10 age range. And I had them take a quiz at the beginning of our sessions together just to see their baseline of like, how they viewed themselves, what their confidence level was. Then for 5 weeks, every once a week, I would meet them for lunch and we'd talk through one of the pillars that I talked about in my platform. And then by the end, I had them take the same quiz. And the results were insane. Their confidence levels shot up something by like 70%. And so seeing their growth and like how shy they were at the beginning and then how comfortable they felt at the end with each other, with me, it was one of those like proud, almost like mother moments. And I was like, okay, I'm doing the right thing. I'm helping people and I'm helping people in a way that I wish I could have been helped when I was that age. So that was just extremely fulfilling for me. And then speaking of the friend side of it all, I competed in Miss America the year that they took swimsuit away, the new owners took ownership. Everything was a bleep show. All that to say is the girls became incredibly close during the 2 weeks of us being at Miss America together because at every turn we were like, what the heck is happening? I vividly remember so we competed the 3 nights of preliminaries. And then after the third night of preliminaries, the judge or the producer came in and we were like, wait, so like, how does the judging breakdown of this interview award go? And they couldn't tell us until after all the preliminaries have been over and after all of the awards were given. And we're like, oh, so now you've decided? So that was crazy. That's beside the point though. Anyway, all that to say is that we all got really close during those 2 weeks that a few months after that, we became so close. We went on a reunion trip. One of the girls worked on a cruise line. So we like went on a cruise all together, shoved 5 of us into this like closet sized room on this cruise ship. And I became so close with one of the girls. I ended up living with her when I moved to New York.
Oh, how is New York? Wait, can we talk about that?
It's the best.
Oh, I love that.
It's like, it's a lot, obviously. Like I recognize it's not for everybody, but it is absolutely for me. I have so much fun just like walking everywhere. You can never be overdressed. You can never wear the craziest thing and, be the craziest thing people see during the day. Like it's wild out here. It's the Wild West, the Wild East. But I absolutely love it.
Anything that we haven't touched on in terms of pageant journey, because I also want to get into life post pageant because you've done so much post pageant, right? And that's something that we always emphasize is like, this is not your life. This should not be your life. This shouldn't be the only thing you're focusing on. And it's supposed to be a stepping stone to everything else. So I want to get into everything that you're doing now, but is there anything?
I'm racking my brain, but I'm also thinking we could get into the weeds. I think you're just going to have to come on again later because there's so many key topics, things that we've already had shows about that we could talk about specifically with Annie and hear her perspective about. But I think we would get in the weeds and we don't have to
sit here for 5 hours and talk.
I know. In true journalistic fashion, before we move on, is there anything that I missed about your pageant journey right now that you think is important to share?
I'll try and be really brief with this, but I think what's important to mention before we move on from like my pageant years is my year as Miss Georgia, like I said before, was the year that all of the leadership changed, but my state, Georgia, was one of the 5 who the executive directors and the entire board was fired. And then Georgia was involved within the lawsuit between the states against the new Miss America organization. You may have had episodes on this in the past, but I was truly in the thick of it. And what I really tried to do during my year was not let the outside world know what was going on behind the scenes. And I think I put on too much burden onto myself because when I won, I had a team of 40 people helping me, run the business side of it, help with sponsors, run my calendar, like my business manager. And then all of a sudden, truly overnight, everything was taken away. And the Miss America organization never reached out to me to tell me what was happening. I found out through the board. And then basically they were like, hey, this is what's going on. Like, see you never. And like, that was it. And then when the lawsuit came in and the old Miss Georgia 1.0 was against 2.0, I was caught in the middle. I had a cease and desist against me where I couldn't communicate with the 1.0 organization, but the 2.0 organization wouldn't talk to me either. So I truly, for an entire year, did the job on my own. Like, thank God for my mom that she was able and willing to move to Georgia to do this with me for a year. So all of a sudden, this like organization that I was so excited to be a part of boiled down to me and my mom. And almost in a poetic way, that's the way it started. And that's the way that my pageant career ended. And I was able to do so much more and so much of what I wanted to do as my years Miss Georgia. I mean, it was awful. I would get email, like I remember vividly, I was a keynote speaker at this like professional business event in Atlanta. And I was walking in, I had a 45-minute speech prepared. And as I was walking into the room, I got an email from whoever saying like, oh, by the way, you have to turn in your car at the end of the week because like we can't cover it anymore. So I'm like, how am I supposed to go and represent this organization I'm supposed to be so proud to say, but they're kind of screwing me over. And so it was this constant battle of being like, okay, like I can be proud of and supportive of the work that I'm doing while I'm not in favor of the administration and not in favor of the way that they're handling anything, and only focus on myself. So I really had to compartmentalize that year of my life. And again, like thank God for my mom, because I could not have done it without her.
I have so many follow-up questions about this, but my first one is about your mental health and your well-being that year. And how did you take care of yourself? What were the key things that you had to do to support your own well-being that year?
Honestly, I didn't do a very good job at it. I reached a point where finally I like went to therapy for the first time, and I had gone to like 2 or 3 sessions, and clearly this was just way over the therapist's head. Like she didn't really know how to give me direction, but it was nice to just talk to an objective audience about what was going on. I mean, I think back, that's when I started watching Gilmore Girls for the first time, and like Rory and Lorelai got me through that year. When I watch that show now, I'm like, I feel so nostalgic in a sad way because I felt like they were my friends, because it was also a phase in my life where I had just finished college. I had just finished college. All of my college friends had dispersed to other places. Not everybody was in Atlanta, but some people were. I was on my own. And then thank God too, I was living with my aunt and her family. So my mom came and moved with us. But like if I had been living alone, it would have been awful. I mean, I would go to appearances. It would take everything in my energy bank to go to appearances, put on a happy face and do my job. And then I would come home and sleep until the next time I had to leave. Like I did what I could mental health wise, but I just survived. I really didn't thrive that year with mental health.
My question was going to be, what would you say to somebody that might be in the same position that you are right now? Because we've seen changes again, like you said, with the organization, or just changes in pageantry in general, or just mental health in pageantry in general. What would you say to somebody that might be in that same spot that you were at?
I would say to reach out to people. Like there are so many different title holders, former title holders that have been through struggles in their years. So if you can do your research and find maybe girls who were in a similar position to you, just talk to them. And even just that release is really helpful. And I would say too, find other ways to fill your soul outside of pageant land when you can. If that's taking a pottery class or like watching a show or spending time with family, like doing something at least once a week that fills your soul outside of pageantry that you can focus on, and zoom out a little bit. Like the year, you guys both know that the year of being a state title holder is all encompassing. It feels like it's all or nothing, but just zoom out and remember, okay, this is supposed to catapult me into the rest of my life. This might not be what I thought it was going to be. Most of the time, it's not. If you talk to any title holder, usually that's exactly what they say. But this isn't what I thought it was going to be. What can I take of what it actually is and help prepare me for my future? And that's kind of exactly what I did as Miss Georgia. I had a broadcast journalism degree, didn't really know what I wanted to do after the fact. And so I started this video series, and I got to travel around Georgia featuring, unique things to Georgia. I called it Sweet Georgia Finds. And I don't think I would have been able to do that had I not been through the year that I had. So it was nice to have that autonomy, that power, that control to say like, no, this is going to help me. This is what I want to do. And I put my foot down and I did it.
Last question before we move on to post pageant life. If you knew everything that you were going to go through and how difficult it was going to be, would you have still wanted to be Miss Georgia?
I think the answer would be yes, because when I look back, the life goal that I had was to compete at Miss America, and it got me there. And not only did it get me there, but it gave me friends that I never would have imagined could have come out of a competition like this. Like girls that will be bridesmaids in my wedding, girls, I'm living with one right now. Like I became so close with the relationships. So that, in one hand, like absolutely yes, but even more so than that, because of what I went through that year, it taught me how to build business and reach out to sponsors and, create strategy decks and like all those things that now as a business owner and as a content creator, I'm doing that all the time with brands now. And so because of everything that I had gone through, it gave me the skills to then catapult to my future, not in the way that Miss America intended, those life skills, but life skills nonetheless.
That's so fun though, because I just had this conversation with a client yesterday about, okay, outside of, because I'm sure you've heard this with your clients too, of I feel like I'm not doing enough to prepare. And so we were having that very conversation. I was like, okay, outside of your traditional pageant preparation for competition and interview and the job, like what are you doing in your life that's actually preparing you skill wise for the job? So we broke down what she's doing in her full-time job right now and how that is assisting her to become the best state title holder that she can be. And it also plays a role when you're a title holder and you're going through the yuck, and there could be a lot of yuck as a state title holder in any system, I'm sure, but the three of us understand from the Miss America organization, that yuck really does, like you said, pulling back that bow and arrow, it catapults you into opportunities that you never would have imagined that you would have had. And we had an episode about this where Lila, you had asked me, would you do it all over again? Or would you want it to be different? And you really get to a point where you're so grateful for the ups and downs and everything in between that you've been through, because where else would we be right now today, if not for those things?
Exactly.
I feel like it's just like a fast track to a lot of life lessons that eventually most of us learn somewhere here or there, but it just speeds up the whole process.
And I will say the interview skills will come in handy tenfold for the rest of your life. I was literally in a showroom the other day with this like PR firm as a content creator, and I was just chit chatting and I was like, oh yeah, like I freelance in influencer marketing. And she was like, oh, we're looking for someone. I was quite literally in leggings, and she was like, do you want to come into my office and just chat about the position? And I was like, obviously. So I'm in there in leggings, not prepared for this interview whatsoever, but I pulled those pageant skills out of somewhere and I nailed the interview. Now we work together. So, I mean, it's
Wow.
those things that you can't put a price on that kind of experience, that kind of preparation.
Absolutely. Oh, I love that. Okay, well, let's talk about content creation. I think we see it so much, or we think we do, or we think we know so much about it because social media is just saturated as it is with everything, let alone like what we think is marketing. So, can you touch on, I guess, what does your day-to-day look like? Give us in a nutshell what it is that you've built with your business, and we'll go from there.
Perfect. Well, when I moved to New York, I actually moved to New York without a job, but I fell into a position within influencer marketing at a fashion PR firm. And so basically what I was doing was helping brands execute their influencer strategies. So that means finding influencers to send product to cross your fingers and hope that they post. That means executing paid partnerships, paying influencers to create the content to post. It also means events. It means a lot of different things within brand media. But if you open your phone to any of the apps and you see a creator post about a brand, that is what we call influencer marketing. So in my careers, I was at two different agencies for about 3.5 years. And then I noticed that the workload that I took on for myself, that I was assigned these positions, was a lot. And transparently, it was a lot for not enough money. And so I kind of reached a point in time, and I had worked all along ever since pageant years to continue to post my own content. It's just something I enjoyed. It felt like my creative outlet. I liked it. And so as I was, doing that in the background and thinking like, okay, like I see how this industry is working. How can it benefit me a little bit more? And I reached a point in time just over a year ago, and I was like, I think I could do this on my own. I had taken the time to build my network and collect all my contacts and grow my audience. And so when I quit my job, I formed an LLC. So now I work on influencer marketing on both sides of the spectrum. I help brands still with their influencer marketing strategy. So with some brands that are new, it's like, okay, how do we even begin to do influencer marketing? Where do we start? And then for other brands that are my clients, I'll jump in and they're saying like, this is the program, we just need your help to execute it. So it's like kind of both ends that way. And then on the other side of the spectrum, I'm the content creator. So then people just like me are emailing me saying like, hey, can you post about this? Or we'll pay you to post about this. And then I create the content to share. And so it's nice to use both sides to help educate myself of saying like, okay, when I am emailing with a brand, this is what sticks out to me when I'm on the brand side, or vice versa. So it's really taking all of that into account, but it's been a challenge. it quitting your job, pursuing something on your own is not for the faint of heart. It's really hard, but it has been really, really rewarding for the last year.
Talk about launching your own business in your 20s.
Okay, so I'm going to be really honest. I had to plan an entire New York Fashion Week party by myself. And it was for like over 100 people. It had a big budget. It was a lot. It was a lot. And it was all on me to do with this brand that was based in London. So I'm like, truly, whoop, I'm alone. And so after that, I was so burnt out, and I had, probably like a dozen other clients that I was working on at the time. So I was working 12 to 14-hour days every day for months. And I reached a point and I was like, I don't have a life. I'm not happy. And if I'm going to work this hard, I want to make more money. It just wasn't enough. And so I called up my boss, and I was obviously very nice about it, but I quit my job. And then I called my mom after, and I was like, I just quit my job. Like, I'm going to need you to emotionally support me on this. I was like, I don't know what I just did, but I just knew I can't do it anymore. And then the guy that I was dating at the time, I was talking to him about it. And I was like, I've always wanted to work on my own. I'm like really scared to do it. I don't know if I could. And he was like, okay, well, do you have money saved? And I was like, yeah, I could probably like not make $1 in the next month or two and be fine. And he was like, well, why don't you just try? I was like, why don't I just try? And so the 2 weeks of my 2 weeks notice, I kind of got my ducks in a row. I filed my LLC. I started to outreach my other clients and, collect contacts that I needed. And then I just really hit the ground running, grinding. I truly didn't see a profit until 6 or 7 months into my job. So right around like the holiday time is when I was like, oh my God, like, okay, I can do this. I can pay my rent. It'll be fine. But it is tough, but it's incredibly rewarding. And now like all of the work that I do or the clients that come in, it's only because I did it. And that is the most fulfilling thing that I could have ever done for myself. I feel so proud of what I've built. And I obviously never would have done it had I not had, outside encouragement, and also reaching my breaking point at the job that I was in.
Yeah.
I feel that on every level. I feel that. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
What has been the biggest lesson that you've learned as a business owner and a young business owner and a young woman who is a business owner?
Yeah, the good thing about this industry is it's very female dominant. And so I never feel like I would walk into a room or send an email and they're like, oh, this girl. Like, no, it's not like that. If I'm emailing somebody, it's 99% of the time going to be a woman or a gay man. So like, I feel very safe, at least in like the feminine aspect of this work environment. But lessons, I think initially I was really worried about how eager I would come across sending emails and checking in with people. And then within like a month or two, I was like, maybe I should just release that. So now I'll send my contacts emails all the time. I'm just saying like, hey, checking in. Is there anything you need from me? Me again, like what's going on? And so it's just, building that community and that network, because within freelancing, what I have found is it's typically a last minute deal. A brand takes on too much work and they're like, we can't do this all ourselves. We need somebody right now to help. And so they need to have you in their brain to say like, okay, when we're at our wit's end, we can call Annie. And so it's me constantly being top of mind. So releasing that feeling of being annoying or being like I'm pestering somebody and just always checking in, always following up. Worst thing that they can do is say no or that they don't respond. And guess what? Fine. I delete emails all the time. Like, okay, but maybe 1 time out of 10, 5 times out of 10, it could work and pay off.
You have to detach like the response that you get or lack of response from your own worth and your own value in what you're doing.
Exactly.
Me into and know this is going to like hit home for a lot of our listeners. It definitely is something that I work on. We had a whole episode about it. How has your money mindset evolved?
Very differently. So being an entrepreneur, being freelance is tough. It's so hard because you can't anticipate your income. Like I have an estimate of a yearly income of what my goal my first year was to earn as much as my salary pre-tax. And so that was my goal. I was not hitting it anywhere close. And then once the summer started, we got back to school season, like it started to like come a little bit. So I got really, really close. In the calendar year of like March to March, I ended up hitting that goal. So that was great. But what I'm learning now is like there are going to be really busy seasons and really slow seasons. And so it's maintaining that spending level. of saying like, okay, just because I have more money in the bank this month doesn't mean I can spend like a crazy person. I still have to anticipate that I might not have any income in the next couple weeks. Or, for example, in May this month, I'm going on a week vacation with my family, and then I have a bachelorette trip. And all of a sudden, that's like almost 2 weeks of the month that I won't be actively working full time. So I have to be comfortable in the money that I have in my bank now, that I can do those things and enjoy that time off, not stress about it or not work through it. So it's really just finding the cadence of when money comes and goes and being really careful with your spending. And also, if anybody's interested in the influencer marketing space, we can talk about taxes, because people don't talk about taxes enough. It is not sexy, it's not fun, but just as a blanket statement, I save 50% of everything I make, anticipating that it will go to taxes. And it doesn't always, but it gets pretty close.
Incredibly helpful. Speaking of influencers, I wanted to ask you, because I talk a lot about being very conscious of your input. Like, what input are you receiving on a daily basis as we're scrolling through social media? What is the algorithm that, we're seeing on all of our reels? Like, and my husband has like Shark Attack reel going like crazy. And I'm like, you need to stop that, because
Doesn't that give you anxiety?
We're going to go on tropical vacations and I'm going to need you in the ocean with me. So like, change your algorithm. So being really particular about choosing who influences you. Do you have any particular influencers that you have actively chosen to influence you in the work that you're doing now?
Yeah, I have. Luckily, I have made a lot of really great friends in the industry. One of my best friends is Savvy Shields, who's a former Miss America. She's also a full-time content creator now. And like, honestly, her audience is more than double what mine is. And somehow we don't feel competitive with each other at all. It's very supportive. And I think what that comes down to is our content style is incredibly different. We're not doing the same thing. We probably wouldn't even appeal to the same audience. Like, Savvy's a new mother, so she has like mother content. She's married with a beautiful apartment. So it's like that type of thing. Her fashion sense is different than mine. Like, I post about working out a lot. I post about, like going out drinking with my friends. Like, it's just a very different messaging that we have. So all that to say is finding friends within the industry that can support you, but you don't directly compare yourself to. Also, on that same note, I have to check in with myself probably on a daily basis, because I do have a lot of content creator friends that, of course, I follow, and I support them on Instagram and social as they support me. But it's tough to then not compare yourself to the deals they're getting, or the events they're going to, or the trips they're going on. And even now, as a freelancer, as a person who does this full time, I'm constantly checking myself of the content creator friends of mine who are married or live with their boyfriends, because they have this added benefit of, okay, they're paying half of rent, or maybe not even half. They're splitting utilities, like they're splitting groceries. Whereas for me, that's all on me, because I'm single right now. And I feel, and I'm working on like accepting my negative feelings when I feel them, but sometimes I feel really jealous. I'm like, why, if they have it so much easier than me, like, why can't I have that sense of like security and safety? But it's not necessarily easier. And so you have to take that out of your mind. And again, like people say it a million times, but comparison is the thief of joy. So it's just being proud of yourself and your own work, being happy for other people when they see the success, because especially on social media, like one person isn't only going to follow one person. Like, the followers can come, right? The engagement can come, but it's detaching yourself from that comparison and the stress that you might feel when you feel like you're falling behind or like excelling past somebody near you.
So, for all of you beautiful listeners, if you were not connecting that to pageant comparison, please rewind and listen again, because in my head, I'm thinking, man, this is just across the board. Comparison happens in every aspect of life, in any kind of industry that you're in. It's such a transferable message. And yeah, beautifully said. It's hard, but it's like a constant thing that we have to work on.
But it's like a muscle. It's like anything else, that if you work on practicing detaching or recognizing how you feel when you feel it, and then adjusting your thought process, you'll get it's muscle memory at this point. So like even yesterday, I had a moment where I was like, oh my God, like, why didn't I get that? And I was like, I'll get something else. It's fine. You just check and you roll.
I was just going to say abundance mindset.
Abundance is everywhere.
You don't have to compete, because there is plenty to go around.
Exactly. Sometimes it's easier said than done, but You got to always say it.
So your tool is basically to reframe your mindset. Like, is that what you go to when you find yourself in, or think back to maybe when you first started dealing with the comparison, when maybe when you were just starting out, or when this was kind of a new thing for you, and when you didn't have that muscle memory yet,
Yeah.
what helped you back when this was all new?
So I had different phases. Well, and when you're upset and you're complaining to somebody, and sometimes you just want to complain, but then they start offering you advice and you're like, okay, shut up. Like, that's not what I need right now. You have to know yourself that way too. Like, sometimes you're going to complain and you don't want to help yourself. That's when you lean into it. You take an hour and you're like, throw yourself a little pity party by yourself. That's okay. You need to do that. But other times you might be able to receive constructive criticism from your own head. So you can think like, okay, well, if they got this paid partnership, what are they doing with their content that's different than mine? Like, what can I be improving? Maybe, it's like getting a new light so my lighting is better, or I don't know, like spending more time outreaching different brands on email. Like, what could I be doing more of to help set myself in the future rather than having that victim mindset of being like, why not me? But sometimes you just have to lean into it. So it's really like picking and choosing your times of when you're going to give yourself that own tough love of saying like, okay, you can be working harder. Like, just try working a little harder. And then other times of saying like, okay, be gentle with yourself. Your time will come. It's okay. Like, keep up that consistency. So it's just, that's like not the best advice in the world, but constantly checking in with yourself of saying, how do I feel? Oh, and also detaching your value from social media. I don't find my value in my followers. I don't find my value in my engagement. Sometimes it really pisses me off, or sometimes it makes me really happy and excited, but that's not where I get my confidence from. I have so many things outside of social that like really fill my cup. This is my job. It's what I enjoy. I like it, but it's not my end all be all. It's not my entire personality. And I think that's really important to have.
Yeah, I mean, and comparison in and of itself doesn't have to be a bad thing. You just talked about how much you can grow and learn from comparing yourself to the work that other people are doing, and finding inspiration in that and momentum. And so, yeah, it doesn't have to be a bad thing. It really is about, like you said, check yourself. Like, how are you perceiving it? How are you, perceiving yourself when you're comparing to somebody else's work? If you can detach your worth from what they're doing and just learn from it, I mean, you're just going to grow that much more versus somebody that's kind of stuck in the why am I not doing enough comparison.
Yeah. And specifically on social too, is like, you have to know the mute button is your friend. Don't be afraid to mute people. If you follow a creator like you don't know, you have no obligation, you feel no obligation to follow them, and they don't make you feel good, unfollow them. Like, you curate your feed to give you the boost or to affect your emotions the way that you feel. So don't be afraid to use that mute button. I actually tell my coaching clients this all the time. I'm like, whoever you follow on Instagram the month before the pageant, mute them. They won't know. Stay in your own lane. Don't even risk seeing their stuff.
Oh, I love the mute button.
Me too.
It's good.
Okay, I want to bring things full circle a little bit, because you all have known each other for quite some time, and we've all been in the pageant world for quite some time. Annie, did you have, say, an aha moment of like, this is why it was all worth it, or this is why I do what I do? Or post pageant life, I think more so, but can you think of any time where you were like, this all came full circle. This was meant to be.
Do you mean specifically like why I'm happy I competed in pageants, or like life in general?
Like, yeah, like where you are now, how pageants have helped you, the people that you've met along the way, kind of rounding out, like, we talked about, was it all worth it? But like, was there a moment where you were like, this is why I'm here. This is why I do what I do now?
It's tough. I don't know if there was a specific like moment in time that I was like, this is it. Wow, I've made it, or this was the reason. It's more of an overarching feeling that now when I walk into an influencer event and I don't know anybody, I've had 110 times that I've walked into a room not knowing anybody, and I know how to work a room. I can talk to anybody. I've done it before, and I've done it with the shiny thing on my head that is super weird to a lot of people. So like, obviously I can talk to a stranger. So like, that's one of those moments I'm like, I'm so happy I had that experience so I can do what I do now and network like the best of them. And then there are other moments where one of my I guess you could call it a simple pleasure in life, is I love small world stories. I love when I meet somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody, or like we have some mutual connection and like somehow it feels like the world is really small. And I love those moments. And I think because of my time in pageantry, I have so many connections to people in other states and people who know people. It's just a very small world. And I think it's those moments that I'm like, I'm on the right path. I'm doing something right. I am exactly where I'm supposed to be when I'm supposed to be there. And those are the moments. I had one yesterday, actually. And honestly, this weekend, like I've had a lot in the last week. I don't know what's going on in the moon and the stars, but something is freaky going on. But I've had so many of those small world moments. And I think that's where not just pageant, but my pageant life, my college life, my career life, all of the network that I've made, all the people and the connections that I've made have led me to this point. And I know it's only going to get better from here. We didn't even talk about the TV show that I was on. So like even like that experience, which was a whole other thing, like all of those choices have led me to being the person that I am. And I really like who I am. And I'm so much stronger today than I was last year or 4 years ago or 10 years ago. So it's like, I'm a big believer that everything happens for a reason. And I'm so happy that this is the path that my life has taken.
To elaborate on that a little bit, what would you say to somebody that is in the yuck right now, that is going through the thick of it? I mean, we look back at your journey, you've talked about it so much today, of the hardship and the struggle, and people that are listening right now are actively going through that struggle. What would you say to them?
Yeah. And I think this is important to recognize too, that like I've had my own struggles in pageant land, and I've also had major struggles personally. I went through like the most traumatic breakup you could ever think of over, like 6 months ago, 8 months ago. So I've had those moments of being like so lost and being like, why me? Why is this happening to me? Where do I go from there? And I've done a lot of soul searching specifically within this phase of the last 8 months of how can I take this and find that positive spin. And so I've been reading a lot, and I was reading this book called That's Bold of You by Case Kenny. It's like $12 on Amazon. Strongly recommend it. Also, the book is very cute. It's like pink and yellow. But
I think that wasn't a paid advertisement, paid sponsor.
no, but if you use my commission link, I wouldn't hate it. No, it was just a really helpful book. And it was the phase of my life that I feel like at the time that I was falling behind. All my friends around me were getting married, they were moving in with their boyfriends, they were having babies, like, and I was just single. And I was like, what am I doing? Anyway, so I was just getting frustrated, and I was feeling like something was wrong with me. So I read this book, That's Bold of You by Case Kenny, and I had never seen it written out this way, but he basically equated life to a meal. Like you don't wait till the end of the meal when you pay a check that you're like, wow, that was really good. When the drinks come, you're like, oh, wait, this is delicious. The appetizer comes, you're like, oh, I love this. The main course might come, be like, oh, didn't really like that about it, but like overall it was pretty good. The dessert comes and it's a whole other wave of being amazing. And then at every single phase, you're talking about how it's good in a different way. And that's how he equated life. So like you might be in the career cocktail phase of your life, but guess what? The main course is coming soon. The relationship course is coming soon. Or you might be in this relationship phase of your life where you're settling down, getting married, having kids, buying a house, whatever. But then the career is taking the back seat. So that will turn over eventually. So it's looking at your life like a beautiful 5-course meal and being okay with saying like, okay, like right now I'm in the career phase. Let's focus on that. Let's find the joy in that. The other things will come. You can have it all. You might not have it all at the same time, but that's just life. And it's supposed to be that way. And it's okay.
Wait, I love that. Why have I never heard that before?
I've never heard that either, but you can also equate it to the analogy, like you wouldn't want all those courses at the same time.
Nope.
You want to take them one at a time.
Yeah. It's kind of like when you eat Chipotle, like you eat everything all at once and it's always fine. It's always good. But you want the side of chips. Give me the side of chips. Give me the dessert later. You got to have it at coursed out.
Exactly. I guess to wrap it up, man, any advice that you have for the listeners? I mean, I know that you've given so many beautiful nuggets of information already, but as we're wrapping up, what would you?
I think my biggest piece of advice is don't be afraid to bet on yourself. I bet on myself to compete in pageants when I didn't know anybody doing it, and it completely changed my life. I bet on myself going to college to somewhere that I didn't know anybody, a completely different state, and that proved to be one of the best decisions of my life. I bet on myself moving to New York without a job, and I can't imagine my life being any different than it is now. Bet on myself to go on this TV show, bet on myself to quit my job and work for myself full time. But because of those risks and because I believed in myself, even in my doubt, I wouldn't be who I am today without that. And so bet on yourself. Know you can do it. You will catch yourself if you fall. And if you fall flat on your face, you're going to learn and be way better the next time, because failure is growth. And failure is not the end. It's only the beginning.
Oh, I love it. Annie, I love you. We're going to see so much more of you. I'm excited because you guys, Annie's going to be a guest coach in Fearlessly Authentic.
I'm so excited.
It's going to be so good. I'm just like all the little snippets of information that you're talking about with social media and mindset and overall approach to competition and just being yourself and interview. I'm like, oh, my clients are going to just like, but where can people find you?
Yeah, follow me on Instagram. It's just my name, at Annie Jorgensen. You can follow me on TikTok, which is occasionally pretty chaotic, but it's at Annie Jorg, Jorg. Otherwise, like, shoot me an email, send me a pigeon carrier. I don't know. I'll be around.
We're going to link all of that in the episode summary. So check that out so you can connect with Annie. And yeah, oh my gosh, thank you.
Thank you so much, Annie. It was good to officially meet you. I've heard so much about you, and this was so much fun. So thank you.
Thank you for having me. I've had the best time, and I will come back anytime. I love to hear myself talk.
Don't we all?
And on that note, episode concludes.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey, we want you to be a part of our growing community. Hit that subscribe button now to stay up to date with the latest insights and strategies straight from industry experts and seasoned competitors. Whether you're a seasoned competitor or just starting your journey, our podcast is your go-to resource for all things pageantry. In each episode, we explore topics like mastering the interview, perfecting your stage presence, navigating the world of pageants, and cultivating confidence. And while you're at it, leave us a review. Your feedback fuels our passion to bring you valuable content that resonates with your journey. Join our community of successful women from around the globe. Subscribe, tune in, and let's embark on this journey together.